Radiant and Resilient is about mindset and faith to break paradigms and overcome challenges in our life. Because when the mind, body, and spirit are aligned, we literally radiate from the inside out. I'm Kay Vasquez. Let's dive in. I want to share a pattern, a cycle that I recently got caught up in, which is not the first time it's happened in my life. In fact, it happened before I became an entrepreneur, functional medicine practitioner. It happened when I was a PA and then as an entrepreneur, and it still occasionally continues to pop up in my life. And every time it pops up, there's a lot of lessons that I learn. And the pattern that I'm talking about is the pattern of lack. And lack is rooted in fear, and it has the underlying belief, not enough. And for me, what I was focusing on was not enough money, not enough clients in the business during this short period of time. And from what's happened in the past, I know when I focus on lack, that it's rooted in fear, it affects me mentally, emotionally, and physically. So I start to go into overwhelm emotionally, and mentally, all the limiting beliefs start coming up about how I'm not enough and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to create. So all these things start coming up and it creates resistance within me. It actually keeps me from showing up, keeps me creating content. And then physically, it will energetically drain me. Even though I get 8.5, 9 hours of sleep sometimes during the night, it will energetically drain me. Like I will still feel tired when I wake up, or I'll need to take a nap. Even though I'm in my second trimester, I actually have a lot of energy when I'm not focused on lack. I actually feel really good physically, but I notice when I start to focus on lack rooted in fear, it's a low energetic emotion, or it emits a low frequency, which is why it actually drains my energy. Also, I noticed that I get constipated, so it impacts my gut as well. Things start to really slow down in my body. So not am I tired, but I also get constipated, and it impacts my sleep. So even though, again, I may get 8.5, 9 hours of sleep, I notice that it impacts the quality of sleep. I don't feel as rested and restored when I wake up. So this pattern of lack, I want to speak to because it has everything to do with our health. And it's a common theme that I've seen in my clients as well. When clients come to me with certain physical issues, most of the time it's low energy and gut issues, as well as sometimes sleep. One of the stressors in their life is around finances. It's around not having enough money. And I get that because I've been there many, many times. And I still, like I said, find myself in that cycle where, yeah, you're just so used to income coming in. And when it doesn't come in, that fear starts to come up. And working with clients, I noticed that, yes, we can focus on the physical body. So I can work on healing their gut. I can get them on good adrenal support their hormones. You know, they also will ask me, what can I take for sleep? But most of the time I tell them that it's not that you need anything for sleep. You just need to calm the mind and the body. Because when the mind and the body is focused on fear, think about it. Fear sends us into survival. When we're in a survival state, are you going to be sleeping? Are you going to be calm enough and relaxed to get good quality sleep? No, because your brain is going to be constantly scanning for threats. And so it's not, a supplement issue. And a lot of clients will take melatonin, for example. They come to me because they're not sleeping well, taking melatonin. It's not a melatonin deficiency. And based off the tests that I do a cortisol and hormone test, which also checks melatonin. Melatonin levels are normal most of the time. It's not a melatonin deficiency. When it comes to this pattern of lack, it's so important to identify it because it does impact our physical health. And it can show up in so many different ways. It can show up also, the pattern of lack would trigger migraines in myself. So it can show up as headaches, it can show up as fatigue, muscle aches and pains. It can show up as digestive issues, reproductive issues, so PMS, period issues, infertility. Like It can show up in so many different ways in the body. Also, autoimmune disorders, rashes, skin disorders, many things like that. So what I really want to bring to light is that if you're experiencing physical things in the body, really tune into, are you focused on lack in a specific area of your life? Because maybe it may not be money, but maybe it's another area of your life, like lack in relationships, finding a spouse, finding a partner to spend the rest of your life with. Is there lack in another area of your life? Because it's the same thing. When we're focused on lack, it's going to generate that fear, which is going to impact the body physically. And so once I identified this, because I recognize, okay, this is how it's impacting me mentally, all the limiting beliefs are coming up, emotionally feeling overwhelmed, and also physically energetically drained, impacting my sleep. Now I'm getting constipated. I knew that I needed to dig into it and get to the root of where this was coming from and be able to shift out of it. However, what I realized is that there was a new lesson that I needed to learn in this cycle. And I also recognize that anytime I focus on lack, which is rooted in fear, it is not coming from God. There's a verse in the Bible, it's 2 Timothy 1:7. And we've quoted it before with tyranny on our episode. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that episode, especially around limiting beliefs. It's so good. And I will drop the link here in the show notes. But 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." And I love that verse so much. And I remind myself of this every time I start to experience fear, because fear doesn't come from God. It's coming from the enemy. And I realize, anytime I have fear and the limiting beliefs start coming in, it's because the enemy is trying to keep me from fulfilling my purpose, which comes from God, keeping me from stepping into who God created me to be. And so this morning, I prayed because I knew a lot of this was spiritual, because the spirit of fear is not coming from God. That's where all these limiting beliefs is coming from, which was impacting me mentally, emotionally, physically. So I was praying to God because I recognized, okay, I'm in a spiritual battle again. This pattern is coming up. What do I need to learn? Because I'm in this pattern again. I'm finding myself here. And I also was frustrated because I'm like, why am I here again? I thought I've done the work around navigating this pattern, but here we are, right? And so after I prayed, I went about my morning, started cleaning the house. While I was cleaning and listening to worship music, God spoke to me. He said, "Are you being who I created you to be?" And whew, when he spoke that over me, it convicted me. It stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, no, God, I have not been who you have created me to be. Instead, I've been a victim. I've been a victim focusing on lack. And I realized that God didn't create me to focus on lack, to focus on fear, or to live in fear. He created me to be an expression of his love and to extend that love to others. He created me to share my gifts, my insights with the world. And so God really convicted me and spoke to me in that moment. And I realized, because Tyranny and we talk a little bit about this too, like limiting beliefs are rooted in sin, which is pride. So again, lack, not enough, is rooted in pride because I was focusing on not having enough clients and income and money coming in to do some house projects. And, it's like, well, why do I really need all these things done? Is it rooted in pride to look a certain way, to feel a certain way? Or can I be happy and grateful for everything that I already have? And I realized the opposite of lack is gratitude and contentment. The opposite of lack is gratitude and contentment. So if I can move to a place of just contentment and gratitude for everything that God has already given me, and remind myself, God has answered all my prayers up to this point. like everything my soul has desired, God has provided, and He's provided in such a beautiful way. And I have a healthy body. I have an incredible marriage. We're co-creating this life that's inside of me that we get to meet this little soul at the end of August. And like life is so good. And when we can move to a place of gratitude and contentment, all that fear is gone. And that was the lesson that I need to learn, and the reminder from God where I needed to put my focus. And also God needed to remind me of like who He created me to be. So if you are currently focused on lack, one, I want to tune into how is it impacting you physically? How are you feeling physically? When you're focused on lack, when you're focused on fear, how do you feel physically in your body? Does it give you energy, or does it take away your energy? Does it make you feel strong? Does it make you feel weak? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel light? Because fear is probably taking away energy, making you feel really heavy. It definitely did for me. And I definitely wasn't feeling strong. But once I shifted out of that fear into gratitude and contentment, I felt light. And I released a lot. Energetically, physically, I released a lot. And so you notice the shift right away when you shift your focus and focus back on who God created you to be. So I really want you to tune into, how are you feeling physically? What are the thoughts that are coming up? How's it impacting you mentally? What are the thoughts that are rooted in fear? And what are you feeling emotionally as a result? And what can you focus on to be grateful for in your life right now? And how can you move to a place of contentment, being happy with everything that you already have? And not only that, ask yourself, who did God create me to be? And am I living in alignment with that right now? So a powerful question I'm going to write down and ask myself every day is, are you being who God created you to be today or in this moment? And I encourage you to do the same. Write down a sticky note, put it on your background screensaver, because I think it's such a beautiful reminder, because we can get so caught up and so distracted with who the world wants us to be, who our spouse wants us to be, who our parents want us to be, who our friends want us to be, when at the end of the day, all that really matters is who God wants us to be. And when we're living in alignment with that, and we're crystal clear on who God created us to be, like, we feel so different. We're connected to that radiant light that's inside of us, which feels light, feels strong, feels empowering. We're able to step out in confidence and do what we're being called to do in every moment and make the impact that we're here to make. So that is why I'm sharing this episode with you, because as I continue to experience things in real time, going through my own patterns, learning the lessons I need to learn, the experiences I'm growing through, that's why I created this podcast, to share with you, to hopefully gain some valuable insights, some valuable tools, perspectives, breakthroughs to help you create a shift in your life as well. So if you found this episode helpful, you had a breakaway, I'd love to hear from you. Please send me a message on Instagram at the Kate Vasquez, and continue tuning in, because this is a journey. The one thing that I want to say is that because this is a journey, don't get caught up on who are you becoming, because I used to have that mentality too. Like, who do I need to become? We don't need to become anything. All we need to do is, again, tap into and tune into who God created us to be, because that's who you already are. And at our true core, our essence is love. And so when we can live in that truth, walk in confidence in that truth, life is amazing. Life is incredible. And anything that's happening outside of us, outside of our control, it doesn't really matter, because God is in control. So don't forget that. It's not about becoming anything. It's actually more about unbecoming everything you're not. All the patterns, all the conditioning, all the beliefs, that is coming from other people, that is coming from the enemy, to actually separate you from fulfilling God's purpose, separate you from who God created you to be. Because you already are who God created you to be. You just have to tap into that and tune into that. And just like shut out all the noise, right? But sometimes we need reminders. So hopefully this was a beautiful reminder. And keep tuning in as I share more insights, more wisdom, more tools, more stories, so we can continue to live life as God created us to be, which in my opinion is radiant and resilient.